Travel Talk with Emma and John.
Hi everyone, welcome to Travel Talk with Emma and John. I'm Emma.
And I'm John. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we're going to talk about traveling, especially some tips for making your trips smoother and more enjoyable.
That's right, John. So, let's get started. John, do you have any favorite travel destinations?
Absolutely. I love visiting Japan. The mix of traditional culture and modern technology is fascinating. Plus, the food is amazing.
I couldn't agree more. Japan is incredible. I personally love Kyoto for its beautiful temples and gardens. What about some travel tips, John? What's your number one tip for travelers?
My top tip would be to always pack light. It makes moving around so much easier. Just bring the essentials and you can buy anything else you need at your destination.
That's a great tip. I always struggle with packing too much. One of my favorite tips is to learn a few basic phrases in the local language. It can really help in making connections and getting assistance when needed.
Definitely. Knowing how to say, hello, thank you, and where is the bathroom, can go a long way. Do you have a favorite travel app, Emma?
Yes, I do. I love using Google Maps. It's so helpful for navigating new cities and finding nearby restaurants or attractions. How about you, John?
For me, it's all about TripIt. It keeps all my travel plans in one place, from flight itineraries to hotel bookings. It's really convenient.
That's a good one. Let's not forget about safety. Always make sure to have a copy of your important documents, like your passport and insurance, stored securely online and with a friend or family member.
Absolutely. And keep an eye on your belongings, especially in crowded places. It's better to be safe than sorry.
Very true.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on Travel Talk with Emma and John. We hope you found these tips helpful. Safe travels and see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Hi everyone, welcome to Travel and Culture with Emma and John. I'm Emma.
And I'm John. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of travel and cultural differences. We'll share some of our experiences, tips, and fun facts about different cultures around the world.
That's right, John. Let's start with a personal story. John, can you share an interesting cultural experience you've had while traveling?
Absolutely. One of my most memorable experiences was in Japan. I was visiting a friend in Tokyo, and they took me to a traditional tea ceremony. The precision and attention to detail were incredible. Every movement had meaning, and it was such a calming and beautiful experience.
That sounds amazing. Japanese tea ceremonies are indeed special. I had a somewhat similar experience in Morocco. I was invited to a local family's home for a traditional meal. The hospitality was overwhelming. They served us mint tea, and the way they poured it from a height into small glasses was fascinating. It's a sign of respect and good hospitality.
That's wonderful. It's those small details that really highlight the uniqueness of different cultures. Speaking of unique customs, let's talk about some interesting ones around the world. Did you know that in Thailand, it's considered rude to touch someone's head?
Yes, I did. In Thai culture, the head is considered the most sacred part of the body. So, touching someone's head, even a child's, is seen as disrespectful. Another interesting custom is in India, where people often eat with their right hand only, as the left hand is considered unclean.
Right. Cultural norms about eating can be quite different. In Ethiopia, It's common to share food from the same plate with your hands, which signifies trust and bonding. It's quite different from the individual plates and utensils we use in the West.
Absolutely. And then there's the concept of time. In some cultures, like in Latin America, being a bit late is socially acceptable and seen as part of the relaxed lifestyle. Whereas in Germany or Switzerland, punctuality is highly valued, and being late is considered very rude.
Yes, understanding these differences can really help in avoiding misunderstandings while traveling. Now, let's give our listeners some tips on how to adapt to different cultures. What's your top tip, Emma?
My top tip would be to always do a bit of research before you go. Learn about the local customs, etiquette, and a few basic phrases in the local language. It shows respect and can help you connect with locals more easily.
That's great advice. I'd add to that by saying be observant and flexible. Watch how locals behave and try to follow their lead. If you make a mistake, don't be too hard on yourself. Most people appreciate the effort you're making to respect their culture.
Definitely. And always approach new experiences with an open mind. Traveling is about learning and growing. And sometimes stepping out of your comfort zone.
Speaking of stepping out of comfort zones, have you ever tried any unusual foods while traveling, Emma?
Oh yes. When I was in Cambodia, I tried fried tarantula. It was definitely a challenge for me. But surprisingly, it wasn't too bad. How about you, John?
I once tried haggis in Scotland. It's a traditional dish made from sheep's heart, liver, and lungs, minced with onions, oatmeal, and spices, and cooked in a sheep's stomach. It sounds a bit daunting, but it was actually quite tasty.
That's brave. Trying local cuisine is such a great way to immerse yourself in the culture. Now, let's talk about some of the benefits of experiencing different cultures. What do you think, John?
I think one of the biggest benefits is gaining a new perspective. Experiencing different ways of life can broaden your horizons and help you appreciate diversity. It can also enhance your problem-solving skills as you navigate through unfamiliar situations.
Absolutely. It also helps build empathy and understanding. When you experience someone else's culture, you see the world through their eyes, which can break down stereotypes and build stronger connections.
Well said, Emma. Before we wrap up, let's share a few quick tips for our listeners who are planning to travel soon. What's one last piece of advice you'd give?
I'd say, always keep an open mind and be respectful. Remember that you are a guest in someone else's country, and your attitude can make a big difference in your experience.
Great advice. And I'd add, don't be afraid to ask questions. Locals often appreciate it when you show interest in their culture, and are usually happy to share their traditions and customs with you.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on Travel and Culture with Emma and John.
We hope you found our discussion interesting and helpful. Safe travels and see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Hi everyone. Welcome to Travel and Food with Emma and John. I'm Emma.
And I'm John. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we're diving into one of our favorite topics, food. We'll talk about some of the most delicious and unique foods we've encountered while traveling.
I'm already getting hungry, John. Let's start with a favorite food memory. Can you share one from your travels?
Sure. One of my favorite food experiences was in Italy. I was in Naples, the birthplace of pizza, and I had the most incredible margherita pizza. The simplicity of the fresh ingredients, tomatoes, mozzarella, and basil made it unforgettable.
That sounds divine. Italy does have amazing food. I had a memorable experience in Thailand. I took a cooking class in Chiang Mai and learned how to make authentic pad thai and green curry. It was not only delicious but also a lot of fun to cook.
John, that's wonderful. Thai food is definitely a favorite of mine as well. Speaking of unique foods, have you ever tried something that surprised you?
Yes, when I was in Iceland, I tried hakarl, which is fermented shark. It has a very strong ammonia smell and taste. It was definitely an acquired taste. But it was interesting to try something so different.
Wow, that's brave. I had a similar experience in Japan with natto, which is fermented soybeans. It's quite sticky and has a strong flavor. Some people love it, but it was a bit challenging for me.
Natto is definitely unique. It's amazing how food can be so different around the world. Let's share some tips for our listeners on how to enjoy local cuisine while traveling. What's your top tip, John?
My top tip would be to eat where the locals eat. Skip the touristy spots and find restaurants or street vendors where you see a lot of locals. It's usually a sign of good, authentic food.
Great advice. I'd also suggest being adventurous but cautious. Try new things, but if you have dietary restrictions or allergies, make sure to communicate them clearly. Learning how to say, "No peanuts," or "I'm allergic to shellfish," in the local language can be very helpful.
Definitely. And don't forget to embrace the experience. Food is a big part of a culture, and trying new dishes can be one of the most rewarding parts of travel.
Absolutely. Before we wrap up, let's share one last fun food fact. Did you know that in Spain, people often eat dinner very late, around 9 or 10 p.m.?
Yes, that's quite different from many other countries. In Spain, the day is structured around multiple meals and snacks, with a long lunch break called siesta in the afternoon.
It's fascinating how meal times and customs vary around the world. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on Travel and Food with Emma and John.
We hope you found our discussion deliciously interesting. Safe travels and happy eating. Bye.
Bye. Hi everyone. Welcome to Travel and Language with Emma and John. I'm Emma.
And I'm John. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of language when traveling. We'll share our experiences and tips on how to communicate effectively in different countries.
Language is such a crucial part of travel, John. It can really enhance your experience. Can you share a memorable language-related story from your travels?
Sure. When I was in France, I decided to brush up on my French. I was a bit nervous, but when I tried speaking to the locals in their language, they were very appreciative and helpful. It made my trip much more enjoyable.
That's great. People often appreciate when you make an effort to speak their language. I had a similar experience in Brazil. I learned a few basic Portuguese phrases, and it made a huge difference in how I connected with people there.
Absolutely. Even just knowing how to say, hello, please, and thank you, can go a long way. Speaking of which, let's share some tips on how to learn a few phrases in the local language before traveling. What do you recommend, Emma?
I recommend using language learning apps like Duolingo or Babbel. They're great for picking up basic phrases and practicing pronunciation. Also, carrying a small phrasebook can be very handy.
Good tips. I'd also suggest watching videos or listening to podcasts in the target language. It helps you get used to the sounds and rhythm of the language. And don't be afraid to practice with native speakers, even if you make mistakes.
Definitely. practice makes perfect. Another fun way to learn is through music and movies. Listening to songs and watching films in the local language can be both entertaining and educational.
Great point. Language is not just about words, it's also about culture. Understanding local expressions and idioms can give you deeper insights into the culture. Do you have a favorite idiom from your travels, Emma?
Yes, in Japan, there's a saying, "Daru kugi wa yutariru," which means, the nail that sticks out gets hammered down. It reflects the cultural value of conformity and harmony.
That's fascinating. In Spain, there's an idiom más vale tarde que nunca, which means, better late than never. It reflects a more relaxed approach to time and deadlines.
Idioms really do offer a window into the culture. Let's also talk about body language, which is a big part of communication. In some cultures, gestures can have very different meanings.
Yes, for example, in Greece, showing the palm of your hand to someone can be considered very rude. It's known as the moutsa gesture. Being aware of these differences is important.
Definitely. And in some cultures, like in India, nodding your head side to side actually means yes, which can be confusing for travelers.
Very true. Well, we're almost out of time. Any last tips for our listeners on handling language barriers while traveling?
I'd say, don't be afraid to use technology. Translation apps like Google Translate can be incredibly useful in a pinch. And always be patient and polite. A smile can go a long way in bridging communication gaps.
Great advice. I'd add, be open to learning and enjoy the process. Even if you make mistakes, it's all part of the travel experience. Well, that's all for today. Thanks for joining us on Travel and Language with Emma and John.
We hope you found our discussion helpful and inspiring. Safe travels and happy communicating. Bye.
Bye.
Hi everyone. Welcome to Travel and History with Emma and John. I'm Emma.
And I'm John. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we're exploring the rich history of different destinations around the world. We'll share some historical facts, stories, and tips on how to make the most of historical sites while traveling.
History is such a fascinating aspect of travel. John, can you share a memorable historical site you visited?
Sure. One of the most memorable historical sites I've visited is the Colosseum in Rome. Standing in that ancient arena and imagining the gladiatorial battles that took place, there was an incredible experience.
The Colosseum is amazing. I had a similar experience in Egypt when I visited the pyramids of Giza. The sheer size and age of those structures are mind-blowing. It really gives you a sense of the grandeur of ancient civilizations.
Absolutely. Ancient sites like those are truly awe-inspiring. Let's talk about some tips for visiting historical sites. What's your top tip, Emma?
My top tip would be to do a bit of research before you go. Knowing the historical context can really enhance your experience. Reading a book or watching a documentary about the site can provide valuable insights.
Great advice. I'd also suggest hiring a local guide. They can offer in-depth knowledge and interesting stories that you might not get from just reading plaques or signs. Plus, they can answer any questions you have.
Definitely. Another tip is to visit early in the morning or late in the afternoon to avoid the crowds. It can make your visit much more enjoyable, and you'll have a better chance to take in the atmosphere.
Good point. And don't forget to wear comfortable shoes and bring plenty of water, especially if you're visiting large sites with a lot of walking. What's one of your favorite historical facts, Emma?
One of my favorites is about Machu Picchu in Peru. It was built in the 15th century, and was so well hidden that it wasn't discovered by the outside world until 1911. Its exact purpose still remains a mystery, adding to its allure.
That's fascinating. Another interesting fact is about the Great Wall of China. It's often said that it can be seen from space, but that's actually a myth. However, it is an incredible feat of engineering, stretching over 13,000 miles.
It really is. History is full of such amazing stories. Let's also talk about respecting historical sites. What should travelers keep in mind?
It's important to be respectful and follow the rules of the site. Don't touch artifacts or structures unless it's explicitly allowed. Also, be mindful of taking photos. In some places, flash photography can cause damage.
Absolutely. And always respect the local culture and traditions. Some sites are still in use for religious or ceremonial purposes. So it's important to be respectful and observe any guidelines or restrictions.
Very true. Before we wrap up, let's share one more historical site we'd love to visit. For me, it's Petra in Jordan. The ancient city carved into the rock looks absolutely stunning.
That's on my list too. For me, it's Angkor Wat in Cambodia. The intricate carvings and the sheer scale of the temple complex are fascinating.
Those are both incredible choices. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on Travel and History with Emma and John.
We hope you found our discussion enlightening and inspiring. Safe travels and happy exploring. Bye.
Bye.
Hi everyone. Welcome to Travel and Nature with Emma and John. I'm Emma.
And I'm John. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we're diving into the beauty of nature around the world. We'll share some of our favorite natural destinations, experiences, and tips for enjoying the great outdoors while traveling.
Nature is such an amazing part of travel, John. Let's start with a favorite natural destination. What's one of your top picks?
One of my favorite natural destinations is the Grand Canyon in the United States. The sheer scale and beauty of the canyon are breathtaking. Hiking down into the canyon was one of the most memorable experiences of my life.
The Grand Canyon is stunning. For me, it's the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. Snorkeling and diving in the crystal clear waters, surrounded by vibrant coral and marine life, was an unforgettable experience.
That sounds incredible. Nature really does offer some of the most awe-inspiring experiences. Let's talk about some tips for enjoying nature while traveling. What's your top tip, Emma?
My top tip would be to always be prepared. Research the destination and check the weather conditions. Bring appropriate clothing, gear, and plenty of water. It's important to be ready for any situation.
Definitely. I'd also suggest leaving no trace. Respect the natural environment by cleaning up after yourself, staying on marked trails, and not disturbing wildlife. It's crucial to preserve these beautiful places for future generations.
Absolutely. Another tip is to take your time and really immerse yourself in the surroundings. Sometimes, it's the quiet moments in nature that are the most rewarding.
Very true. And don't forget to capture the memories. Taking photos is great, but also, take some time to simply enjoy the moment without the camera.
Yes, balance is key. Let's also talk about some unique natural phenomena. Have you ever seen the Northern Lights, John?
I have, and it was magical. I saw them in Iceland, and the colors dancing across the sky were absolutely mesmerizing. It's one of those experiences that you have to see to believe.
The Northern Lights are on my bucket list. Another natural phenomenon that fascinates me is bioluminescent plankton. I saw them in Puerto Rico, and the way they light up the water at night is like something out of a fairy tale.
That sounds amazing. Nature has so many wonders to offer. Let's also talk about national parks. They're great places to experience nature. Do you have a favorite national park, Emma?
Yes, I love Yosemite National Park in California. The combination of towering cliffs, giant sequoias, and stunning waterfalls is breathtaking. It's a perfect place for hiking and photography.
Yosemite is fantastic. For me, it's Banff National Park in Canada. The turquoise lakes surrounded by rugged mountains are simply spectacular. It's a paradise for outdoor enthusiasts.
Banff is beautiful. Before we wrap up, let's share one last tip for our listeners who are planning a nature trip. What would you recommend, John?
I'd recommend respecting the local regulations and guidelines. They're there to protect both you and the environment. And always have a plan, but be flexible. Nature can be unpredictable, so it's important to be adaptable.
Great advice. I'd add to take it slow and enjoy the journey. Nature has a way of teaching us to be present and appreciate the simple things. Well, that's all for today. Thanks for joining us on Travel and Nature with Emma and John.
We hope you found our discussion inspiring and helpful. Safe travels and happy exploring. Bye.
Bye. Hi everyone. Welcome to Travel and Adventure with Emma and John. I'm Emma.
And I'm John. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we're talking about adventure travel. We'll share some thrilling experiences and tips for those looking to add a bit of excitement to their travels.
Adventure travel is so exhilarating, John. Can you share one of your most thrilling experiences?
Sure. One of my most thrilling experiences was bungee jumping in New Zealand. The adrenaline rush from jumping off a bridge, with only a cord attached to my ankles, was incredible. It was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time.
That sounds intense. I had a similar experience when I went skydiving in Switzerland, jumping out of a plane at 14,000 feet with the Swiss Alps below was both terrifying and breathtaking. It's something I'll never forget.
Skydiving is on my bucket list for sure. Adventure travel can be so rewarding. Let's talk about some tips for those looking to try adventure activities. What's your top tip, Emma?
My top tip would be to do your research and choose reputable companies for your adventure activities. Safety should always be a priority. Read reviews and make sure the company follows strict safety guidelines.
Absolutely. I'd also recommend starting with smaller adventures if you're new to it. Try activities like hiking, kayaking, or zip lining before moving on to more extreme sports. It helps build your confidence and skills.
That's great advice. And always listen to your guides and instructors. They're there to ensure your safety and enhance your experience. What's one of your favorite adventure destinations, John?
One of my favorites is Queenstown in New Zealand. It's known as the adventure capital of the world, offering everything from bungee jumping to jet boating. It's a paradise for thrill seekers.
Queenstown sounds amazing. For me, it's Costa Rica. The country offers incredible zip lining, white water rafting, and surfing. Plus, the lush rainforests and diverse wildlife add to the adventure.
Costa Rica is fantastic for adventure. Let's also talk about some unique adventure experiences. Have you ever tried canyoning, Emma?
Yes, I have. I tried canyoning in Slovenia. It involves descending waterfalls, sliding down natural slides, and jumping into pools of water. It was an amazing and challenging experience.
Canyoning sounds like a lot of fun. I tried sandboarding in Peru's Huacachina Desert. It's like snowboarding but on sand dunes. It was a thrilling experience, especially when speeding down the steep dunes.
That sounds incredible. Adventure travel really pushes you out of your comfort zone and creates unforgettable memories. Before we wrap up, let's share one last tip for our listeners. What would you recommend, John?
I'd recommend always having travel insurance. That covers adventure activities. Accidents can happen, and it's important to be covered for any eventuality. It gives you peace of mind while you're having fun.
Great advice. I'd add to always respect the environment and local communities. Adventure travel often takes you to pristine natural areas, so it's important to leave no trace and be mindful of your impact. Well, that's all for today. Thanks for joining us on Travel and Adventure with Emma and John.
We hope you found our discussion exciting and informative. Safe travels and happy adventuring. Bye.
Bye. Hi everyone. Welcome to Travel and Festivals with Emma and John. I'm Emma.
And I'm John. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we're exploring the vibrant world of festivals around the globe. We'll share some of our favorite festival experiences and tips on how to make the most of them.
Festivals are such a wonderful way to experience a culture, John. Can you share a memorable festival you've attended?
Absolutely. One of the most memorable festivals I've attended is Oktoberfest in Munich, Germany. The atmosphere was incredible, with traditional music, delicious food, and of course, lots of beer. It's a fantastic celebration of Bavarian culture.
Oktoberfest sounds like a lot of fun. I had a memorable experience at the Holi festival in India. The celebration of colors is so joyful and vibrant. People throw colored powders at each other, dance, and celebrate the arrival of spring. It was an unforgettable experience.
Holi is definitely on my bucket list. Festivals really bring people together. Let's share some tips for our listeners on how to enjoy festivals while traveling. What's your top tip, Emma?
My top tip would be to plan ahead. Festivals can get very crowded, so it's important to book accommodations and tickets in advance. Also, research the festival's history and customs to fully appreciate the experience.
Great advice. I'd also suggest being respectful of local traditions and dress codes. Some festivals may have specific attire or behaviors that are expected, so it's important to be mindful and respectful.
Definitely. And don't forget to immerse yourself in the experience. Participate in the activities, try the local food, and engage with the locals. Festivals are a great opportunity to learn and connect.
Absolutely. Let's also talk about some unique festivals around the world. Have you heard of La Tomatina in Spain, Emma?
Yes, I have. It's a huge tomato fight held in the town of Buñol. Thousands of people gather to throw tomatoes at each other. It looks like a lot of messy fun.
It certainly does. Another unique festival is the Harbin Ice and Snow Festival in China. It's one of the largest ice and snow festivals in the world, with massive ice sculptures and stunning light displays. It's like a winter wonderland.
That sounds magical. Festivals really showcase the creativity and spirit of different cultures. Let's also talk about some safety tips for attending festivals. What should travelers keep in mind?
Safety is important. Stay aware of your surroundings and keep an eye on your belongings. Festivals can be crowded, and it's easy to get separated from your group. So have a meeting point in case you get lost.
Good point. Also, stay hydrated and take care of yourself. Festivals can be exhausting, especially if they last several days. Make sure to drink plenty of water, eat well, and get enough rest.
Absolutely. Before we wrap up, Let's share one more festival we'd love to attend. For me, it's the Rio Carnival in Brazil. The parades, costumes, and samba music look absolutely amazing.
Rio Carnival is definitely on my list. 2. For me, it's the Cherry Blossom Festival in Japan. The beauty of the cherry blossoms and the traditional celebrations are something I'd love to experience.
Those are both fantastic choices. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on Travel and Festivals with Emma and John.
We hope you found our discussion colorful and inspiring. Safe travels and happy festival going. Bye.
Bye.